Okay, so in our last um, lecture, we talked about the experiences of blacks in the North. Now I want to talk about the experiences of black women in colonial America because you can say, because we're trying to unpack some of these ideas, be more specific. So not just say slavery, but slavery where. And another way to be more specific and to get into the nuances of the system of slavery is to talk about exactly who was enslaved because everybody experienced slavery different. And talking about black women will definitely illustrate that point. But before we talk about black women, let's talk about white women. There were few places in um, British North America where white people, I'm sorry, where white women enjoyed equality. Men were seen as the head of the family. Um, so the interests and rights of women were expected to be represented and monitored by men. So white women could not hold public office, they could not vote, um, could not own property. Um, and even husbands were free to beat their wives to secure obedience as long as they did not use a stick greater in diameter than a man's thumb. Most occupations were closed to women, regardless of your family background or education. Um, so these are all things that not only white women experience, but black women experience also. So these forms of sexism are things that women um, of all races face. However, there were some unique experiences of black women because black women were subject to multiple jeopardy, meaning not only were they subject to sexism, they were also subject to racism. And to understand black women's access or denial of power, uh, we need to look at the intersection of their race, their status as being enslaved, and also their gender, and not just look at one. Um, because their experiences are going to be different than black men and they're going to be different than white women. So, for example, uh, not only were black women subject to all of those things that white women were subject to, there were other things that there were other challenges that black women faced as well. So, oftentimes, it was seen as the role of women to have this dominant identity of being a mother or being a wife, and that was limited. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but when that's your only expectation or you only have the opportunity to be that, now that is limiting. Now think about it. Black women who very well may have wanted to do that also had limitations on their ability to do that. Why do you say? So, for example, if you're on a plantation in Virginia or if you're owned by someone in New York and you want to have children, those opportunities are going to be limited. Um, it may be extremely difficult to find a mate because there are not a lot of people on your particular work site. Another thing that black women faced that was unique was that they it was clear to them that they didn't have ultimate authority over their children, which white women in many degrees experience much greater control in being able to manage their children. And we know that because children could be sold, obviously without the permission of their enslaved parents. And one obvious difference that black women face in comparison to black men is that they were more commonly subject to rape and sexual abuse. So for these ways, black women had vastly different experiences um, than men did. So what were the experiences? Black women often worked in the fields just like men. They often worked in the house as domestic servants. Um, they often served as midwives, as medics and nurses for blacks and whites on the plantation. Um, it was common for black women to breastfeed white children. And anybody who knows, I think I know, some of you biological majors may know better than what I do, but when you are breastfeeding, it's difficult for you to become pregnant. So black women who were charged with the responsibility of breastfeeding white children, oftentimes that limited their ability to have children themselves.